Hey guys, I'm Dr. Alok Trivedi, aka Dr. Rewire. Thanks for joining me today. Are you burnt out? It's an important question. Are you burnt out? Because if you're burnt out and you don't realize it, it could be causing you to gain weight, lose libido, lose sex drive, feel uninspired in life, feel depressed, maybe even anxiety, maybe even suicidal thoughts. It's a major problem that we have in our country and our society. Today is an important day because we're going to discuss how to get rid of that. So stay with me and we're going to cover that in a lot of detail. Are you burnt out? Do you know that you're burnt out? Is it something that you deal with on a day-to-day basis? Look, our country, we all, maybe you do, maybe you struggle with being burnt out. Maybe you struggle with the idea of not being able to live your life on your terms. Maybe you struggle with the idea that you're so exhausted living everyone else's rules, everyone else's expectations of your life that you get lost in what you really want to do. Eventually that leads to burnout, leads you to lose your enthusiasm for life, and you kind of feel like you have to just live in this rote, mundane, day-to-day life. You're not alone. The thing is that so many people in society live this way. They struggle this way. And they call this life, and at the end of the day, they look back at their life and say, what did I do? What did I achieve? What did I accomplish in it? And they feel overwhelmed through most of it. And if you're one of these people, you know that being overwhelmed eventually leads you to become resentful at everyone around you and angry. And then when you're angry and resentful at people around you, what you do is you start to snap, you start to get pissed off with everyone, and it affects the way that you live. It affects the way that you sleep. It affects the way that you actually like to communicate. And the biggest part of this, and probably the one that's the most tragic, is that it affects the way that you treat the ones that you love. Some of the signs and symptoms of burnout are probably getting sick a lot. Right? I remember myself, I didn't realize it was burnout. Right? As an entrepreneur, you say, I don't get burnt out, I just work harder, I grind out more. The more I grind out, the better off I am. And the better off I'll be. And so you go and you work harder and you work harder and you work harder, and you realize that you seem to get colds every so often. You get flus every so often. I remember I was like once a quarter. I was the once a quarter guy. I kid you not. Once a quarter, I'd get a cold. I'd be like, oh, it's just my once a quarter cold. And then once I started to realize that, look, this is me actually being burnt out. This is me getting frustrated. I realized that I was fatigued. I was constantly tired. I was getting these migraine headaches. I don't know if you've ever been there, right? But you get these headaches. And if you get headaches, there's probably a good reason that you do. Maybe even some stomach issues, digestive problems. These all become a factor, right? Maybe even psychologically you feel that you have to be isolated in an island, and you feel a loss of drive, loss of motivation, and the sense of feeling like you're a failure. That's a big one. And depression kicks in right after that. So be careful. If these are what you see in your life, you could be dealing with burnout right now. So be careful of that, because it's a huge, huge problem, so that we can now solve it. If you're at work and you're burnt out, you're going to feel exhausted, you're going to feel angry, you're going to feel stressed with the ones you work. The biggest problem, though, you're going to feel uninspired by your work. And that's a dangerous place. When you're uninspired by your work and you just feel like you've got to go there to make a paycheck, to survive, to live, that's where your work starts to engage. Did you know that literally 87% of the population, this is according to 2018 Gallup poll, 87% of the population is disengaged and rather do something else with their life rather than do what they're doing in their career. And 50% of the population right now is literally looking for a new job or a new opportunity. That's the stress levels we're under in our society, whether it be through social media, whether it be through family, through friends, or even our own bosses, our own expectations. We're under so much stress that we can't process it. We can't process it. What it does to you is it neurologically breaks you down. And what happens is you get cortisol that goes up. And that cortisol goes up and you start to gain weight. And then we start eating foods that are unhealthy. We start eating more sugars and sweets and M&Ms and Ho-Hos and Oreos to make ourselves feel better. But that's not the solution by any means. If this is happening to you, you got to realize that you got to look at the work environment and ask yourself, is it really work that's causing the problem? Or is it the way that you're responding to your life? And are you overwhelmed so far that you don't even know, and this is just your way of existence? You're constantly living in what we call in the health world a state of sympathetics. A state of sympathetics is always in overdrive. It's like driving your car in first gear all the time. That's an exhausting feeling. You'll burn the engine out and then the engine will get destroyed. That's what most people are doing in today's society, and you could be one of them. Diet is essential to the handling burnout. Let me tell you why, because most people don't think about it. But what you've put into your body, this is the fuel you put into the machine. And if the fuel is crappy fuel, then your body breaks down. I'll give you an example of this, right? Like, would you put crappy gas in a beautiful Porsche engine? No, you wouldn't, because the car would break down, right? Like, it's like putting Costco gas in a Ferrari engine. Your body is a Ferrari, but if you put Costco gas in, which is 70% of the octane that a Shell or a Mobil or one of these high-end gas stations are, you literally burn the engine out. It's the same way with our diet. It's the same way with our life, and it's the same way with our foods. If we have this Ferrari engine, but we constantly put in breads and pastas and cereals and processed foods, we're literally putting garbage gas into the Ferrari engine. We've got to stop that. We've got to eliminate the sugars. We've got to put the right probiotics into our system. We've got to put the right health foods into our system. Greens are essential in living an understanding of alkalinity and making sure that your system stays functioning correctly. Being a green, alkaline-based diet is important for you to be able to function correctly, breathe correctly, and being able to adapt to stressful environments. Yeah, if you're tired and burnt out, look, you've got to. I'm telling you just got to exercise. It sounds crazy. People are like, I don't want to exercise. And it's hard, right? When you're depressed and you're unmotivated, you don't want to get up and exercise. But exercise is what's going to get your body moving. It's oxygen, right? When you breathe, you are literally putting oxygen, which is energy, into the system. And that oxygen is what's going to help you process information. It helps you burn the sugars out of your system. The brain doesn't have a problem with all the nonsense. It has a problem with sugars. When we're eating too much and we're not moving, the brain can't process the sugars. The body doesn't process the sugars. And what it does, it stores up in fat and in our brain, believe it or not, in amyloid plaques. So we've got to be careful inside of ourselves that we don't get stuck in here. So you got to move, you got to get up. Even if you do 20 minutes, I don't care if you do 20 minutes of a walk. I'm going to walk for a sustained cardio for 30 minutes and just get the body moving. If you do that minimally every day, you can't stay in a state of burnout because oxygen moves that energy around. And when you get oxygenation, that energy to different parts of your body, the blood, the lungs, the heart, the brain, you start moving things and things start to process quickly. Without oxygen, your system stays flatline. So we've got to make sure that we're putting more oxygen in the system. So you got to get up and move. Other than that, I would tell you, look, you got to do some resistance training. It's important. If you've been on my channel long enough, you know that I talk about resistance training as one of the most important components of exercise. It is tremendously important that you exercise with resistance training as well because it's going to burn the sugars off in your system. Exercise definitely slows down the process of burnout and helps you process your life much more clearly. So one of the things that people don't realize is sleep, and you may not either. If you're sitting there at night and sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night and that's all you sleep and you get up and you go, you are not functioning the way that you're supposed to. See, burnout happens when you don't recover properly. You've got to be able to recover into the system, recover into your body so that you get the proper rest, so that you can get up for the next day and do what it is you need to do. When you don't recover and sleep 7 to 8 hours of healthy delta sleep, what you do is you cause yourself to get up tomorrow and not feel energized and enthusiastic. And what that does is it lowers your ability to adapt to a changing environment called stress. And that breaks down your system, breaks down your body, but the biggest thing it does is it cumulatively affects and causes you to gain more weight and break down and cause relationship issues with the people around you. So get lots of rest. Look, if you keep doing this and you're constantly asking yourself, I keep going through the same pattern over and over again and you're stuck and asking yourself, I keep going back into burnout, you got to ask yourself a really, really specific question. Are you making the changes that you need to in your environment? Or are you doing things but expecting a different results because you're not changing the way that you think? See, this whole secret to the whole game is rewiring the way that you think. Right? You got to stop spending time just trying to get over burnout. And you got to understand what you want to do to be able to create the life that you want. You got to be able to look at your life and dissolve the expectations that you're holding on to. Stop chasing the world around you. Stop chasing the fantasies and living in everyone else's rules that you're subordinating your life to versus really being authentic and real to who you are, what you do, and why you do it. Because when you do that, what's going to happen is that you're going to start to live from an authentic state. There's a scientific definition of authenticity. A scientific definition. It states that if you believe what you say and say that truth to the world, that's called authentic. And it's scientifically, you can measure it. The EMF that comes off your system, the electromagnetic frequency that comes off your system, they can test this and they've shown this. That if you believe something so real that you're being authentic with it, that's the key to it, right? But if you continue the same pattern, lying to yourself, Judging yourself, you're going to ask yourself different questions, and you're going to lead to burnout because your judgment towards yourself causes you immense amounts of chaos, internally and externally. That is one of the biggest reasons I've seen of burnout in all my years of working over 500,000 people. They're judging the way their life is. Stop the judgment towards yourself so that you can actually move towards a direction you want to. See, most people live in expectations of their life, of what's supposed to be there, of how it's supposed to be there, and they create fantasies for their life versus looking at reality. And both of these causes you massive amounts of delusion. An expectation is going to cause you to break down, right? Puts a hard X on the way things are. Fantasy makes you chase things that you are endlessly going to chase after without getting really what it is you want to, because you are always looking for something on the outside to make you feel better. The solution to this is to look at things really knowing your values and really creating a set of standards. A set of standards is different than expectations because a standard is always evolving, it's growing, it's moving, and it's changing, adapting inside of it. But an expectation is rigid and it's hard. But when you know who you are, your values of who you are, you won't have a problem making different standards for yourself because you'll sit and say, this is who I am, rather than trying to be somebody else. I don't know about you, but one of the hardest things that people have is to try and do something and be somebody other than themselves. We spend all this time in our life trying to be authentic, but we spend our time, we say be authentic, but we spend our time being someone else. That's a problem. And the more you do that, the more chaos it creates and ensues inside of your physiology. Be authentic, be real to who you are, know what your values are, and set your own standards so that other people don't get to run your life and you get to live yours. So look, if you're feeling the effects of being burnt out, it's not easy. Like, don't let me tell you it's easy. By no means is it. And I'm not trying to say that it is. But it's a matter of taking control of yourself, taking control of the way that you think. If you can take charge of the way that you think and really take charge of it, learn who you are, understand what your exact values are, your identity is, then you'll be able to look at your life and understand it. There's lots of information on my site. You're happy to go check it out if that's of value to you. But the one thing I want you to grasp is this, is if you move your body and change the way that you think, your life cannot stay the same. You will move to a different place, a different trajectory of your life. But if you stay in the same position you're in, inertia will take over and you'll stay stuck in that position. So change the way that you think, rewire it so that you don't stay stuck in the pattern that you're in. Because being overwhelmed is simply a process of staying where you're at. Change it, rewire the way that you think, live a different life, stay the course of your inspired life. I'll see you guys in another video. Click, like, share, do whatever you want with all these bells and dings, but I'll see you in another video. Hopefully this has been of value. Thanks a lot. I'm Dr. Alok Trivedi, aka Dr. Rewire. Hey guys, if you like that video, click on the link over here and you're gonna love the next video.